Hello, this is Juan Castaneda, and for today's Geography in My Backyard project, we'll be going over Heritage Duck Pond, not only from the features that it has that distinguishes itself from other parks, but the overall landscape that makes up Heritage Duck Pond. One thing you notice from Heritage Duck Pond's overview is that it has a natural bridge going across its shape. The shape it takes can technically be a sort of drainage basin due to its inclined natural bridge. Drainage basins basically are the result of inclined geographical landscapes heavily affected by natural and chemical weather. This includes the growth of plant life to the runoff water that flows down from the many inclines the park possesses. Once again, many of the trees cause chemical and natural weather that alter the natural bridge's shape. And with this, it has made the bridge, in a sense, bend and also become smaller because it's constantly pushing up dirt and spreading its roots, which of course makes the bridge uneven, and at times it may seem a little unstable, as there are areas in the bridge where there are pockets of simply no dirt. It slowly caves in, and with the cause of natural weathering, then it will inevitably become a problem and make the bridge unstable. As you can see from these two images right here, an example of the trees directly affecting the landscape of Heritage Duck Pond. As you can see from the bottom, the many roots that stick out, along with them later forming leaves and forming trees of their own, in a sense, small trees that grow. These kind of trees basically lean towards light, and since they're basically bending all weird and all over the place, then it'll of course have the dirt move at several different directions and until it eventually disconnects itself from the bridge altogether. Another thing you may notice from the same roots picture is that there is a sort of incline, and if you look a little bit closer to those same roots, you will see these kinds of rocks, which is basically the overall lifespan that the rock has lived. And this can be determined from the layers that the rock has, along with its colors, to the weathering process that was affected by it. Maybe it could have been affected by water, oxygen, vegetation, who knows. All the point is that it shows you how it was affected in a geographical standpoint, and in a sense a historical standpoint, because the visual image of these rocks alone tell you the history of what they went through in terms of weathering and the geographical changes throughout the land. Going back to weathering on this one, there are temporary streams called internment rivers. They only fill the water whenever it rains, snows, or runs off underground. And this is from water shedding, which is basically the result of high elevation slowly going down and basically taking bits of land, not chunks of mountains and all, but essentially little bits of dirt that make up the land. If it slowly starts pinching it over and over again from the watershed effect, then it'll essentially form this, which is in a sense a sort of meridian scar or a gully. Now, as you could see from this same image, you could of course see the remnants of a river only forming during rainy days or melting snow and precipitation, stuff like that. Again, only filling during those specific days, which are basically temporary rivers. And once again, it basically leaves a little scar on this land and showing you where it leads, how long it is, stuff like that. Now, the result of runoff and watershed formation leads to bits of terrain being washed away due to the velocity of flow of internment rivers. As you can see right here, some of this gravel ended up washing up to that same gully from the previous image. And from the other image on the right, it essentially shows you the process of what goes on in simplistic terms, as in how did the gravel get from point A to point B. It was none other than the internment rivers. Now, meander scars basically make up all of Heritage Duck Pond. No matter where you go, you see so many different scars and remnants of meander scar, which is basically the result of a temporary river flowing down and it's left its mark. As you can see from those arrows, you will see inclines and basically different elevations of land. And it's lower from both images on the left, simply because when water flows, it flows through the cement and then will constantly flow. It will seep through the cement and form its own little stream where it will eventually go back into another body of water one way or another, or simply go through the natural water cycle and evaporate or simply seep through the ground and so on. The original geography of this land was simply an empty spot of land. It wasn't until a man-made depression was formed underneath before the park was made in the 1970s. There aren't any images to prove what was there before, aside from an empty land. That, and I can't really, travel back in time to go get those images. Though, to basically get into what it was before, which was basically a farmland, or if not simply a piece of land that's kind of lost to history, but that's why we have the rocks which we're able to study. And from what you can see right here, this land is relatively not very old, since the only evidence tracing back to this park is about 40 years ago. And once again, to sum up the overall age, you would have to study the stones and the layers within those stones that made up the land from the previous images, where they have layers, they have cracks, all that. You have to study those stones. But overall, thank you very much for going over the geography of this beloved park with me. What we learned today is that Heritage Park's uneven slopes that cause runoffs has been greatly affected by weathering. Not only just weathering in general, but different forms of it, from natural weathering caused by vegetation and chemical weathering like water seeping through cracks and so on. And you could also consider geography's result as ever-changing, as the land is slightly altered from every pebble, moved from runoffs to cracks slowly formed in rocks. In a sense, no matter what, no spot of land is ever the same when it rains, or just anything geographical that impacts